The base was designed in such a way that we can be protected from war. We also have the units factory. So in 1972, the base was almost completed. So that's the command site of the base. The office buildings. So it's a seaside defense base, right? This is NG8 number 8. There are 4 phases for the space industry production. First is the research of the plan. Second is the pilot project phase of the plan. Third is experiment. That is to test the missile. Why do we have such a missile? In the first place, the name was an Eagle, Sea Eagle number 1. It came from former Soviet Union, but we held a meeting at the time that reshuffled the plane. Why did we change the plan? Because at that time our economy was not so developed. The government cannot afford such a big investment. That's why we changed the plan of NG number 8. For Sea Eagle number 1 and number 2, like these two, they were required for production. But the production line belongs to Sichuan company, not in our hands. We can only produce NG number 8. So these missiles were for production purpose, right? Yes. Well, this one is our home-developed missile, right? From the design to the experiment to the stage when it takes shape, all designed by China. Yes, when we reshuffle the plane, when we produce the NG number 8, we had some problem. Because another company had a big production capacity. But the number, it was transferred to number 6 department and later to number 7 department. Our former leader in the war resistance period, in 1974, we had such a reshuffle plan meeting. The missile production was taken away from us. We have nothing to produce. So that's why we studied this problem. We tried every possible way to seek a path for development. From the leaders level to the workers, we all went through the Cultural Revolution. That's a period when we suspended the production. So in 1969, we settled the plan, and in 1970, we started production. Of course, at that time, the factory people, the workers, they were very excellent in terms of working skills. and also the leaders. Many leaders even come from some remote regions, but they were very excellent. And some of them were heroes from the war period. And they vowed to accomplish something great, to make a difference. So many factories at that time decided to start production for civil purpose. For example, the launching pads, the launching vehicles, all became the items for production. They vowed to find a new type for the production. When you newly joined the factory, you produced many products for military use, right? Yes, in 1970s, the factory was quite developed already. We have several factories already in use. We have a number of factories under construction as well as under production. And some factories were producing some important items like rubber wheels. And some decided to produce missiles, but we didn't know how to produce tactical missiles. There was an expert from the space industry. He said it's unreasonable to produce such missiles because such a missile is not powerful enough and it's not accurate either. Well, this missile is the most productive one out of your research, right? Yes. At that time, we did not have enough talents to be on the production team. So the leaders later required us to produce the number 1060 missile, a type from former Soviet Union. But we were also required to tackle some key issues in the production and make innovation. Because it's a former Soviet Union missile, we cannot simply make a copycat. Can you tell us some story about the research and development of this missile? It takes quite a long time. We started the research in 1975. We need to find the right people, the right researchers. That's very critical. There is a researcher called Wang Zhenghua who studied overseas in former Soviet Union. He spent a lot of time on researching the tactical missile. And that's also the requirement from Premier Zhou Enlai to study the tactical missiles. We had some problems like inaccuracy, insufficient power. So we did a lot of research and we tried to recruit researchers, and in 1976 we made a breakthrough. Just now he mentioned Mr. Wang Zhenghua as the general chief researcher of this missile. Well, many of the missiles here have already been moved to Xiaogan and other cities in Hubei. Did you go through a very hard time in the research? Yes, of course. In the first place, we settled a general plan regarding what kind of engines to be used. I mean the carriers. Then the command site. How to make sure that we are correct with the accuracy. Because it's a liquid missile, so we need to be very cautious with the accuracy. The liquid one is more difficult than the solid one because the solid one can be ready for use when it's ready. As said, Mr. Wang Zhenghua made a great contribution to the research of this missile. Mr. Cao is already 84 years old. And Mr. Wang Zhenghua was born in around the 1930s, but he died of cancer in 1994. Both I and Wang Zhenghua graduated from high school in 1955. We both were selected for the same school, but later he went to Moscow for further study. He spent 6 years and 8 months in former Soviet Union. We were dispatched to the same Russian language school, which recruited 50 students. And among the 50, we had 5 students selected for special tasks by Premier Zhou Enlai. I personally attended the 4th training. I was in the 3rd batch of students to be recruited. Mr. Wang graduated in 1962 from the major of missile research. And later he worked in the 5th Space Academy. He was very hardworking and very productive in his research, and we had a lot of chances to communicate with each other. And in 1970s, I met him again. We talked about the tactical missiles, and he thought highly of my suggestion on the research of the missile, and he decided to go for it. Actually, if he decided to stay in Beijing, he will have a very bright future. But he decided to go to Hubei for missile production. But unfortunately, Later, he was diagnosed with cancer. Once he visited me on purpose and asked me to convene a meeting to convene all those chief engineers on missile production. And I realized that he already was very serious. I mean, his illness was very serious. So I convened a meeting as requested. And he shared in the meeting a lot of ideas on the management, the research, and the production of the missiles. And we were deeply touched. Although he knew he would not survive long, but he still insisted on working. There is another man called Mr. Dongfeng, the chief engineer, the chief designer of the missile, and Mr. Wang is the vice chief designer. In 1990s, Mr. Dongfeng was dispatched to work in Nanjing. You know, Nanjing is a nice place. He asked me whether I agree on his moving from Hubei to Nanjing. I said no, because if he moved away, then I will become the chief designer. I am old enough to do. I'm too old to do that. It's not that I know nothing about missiles. But anyway, it's a decision already made. I cannot do anything about it. And that's when I started working with Mr. Wang. When you worked with Mr. Wang, one of the core technology issues is about accuracy of the missile. Yes, he produced a 100,000 character paper to testify on the missile production, including the engine, the jeep, motors. There is a story about a motor. In 1980s, China's motors were introduced from former Soviet Union. But if it broke down, the former Soviet Union did not help us repair it. So we had to find a way on our own. So the leaders decided to entrust this task to number 8 ministry. That's where I work for. So I led a team to do it. A lot of experts and technicians. And the local people asked us to repair the launching pads. So we solved the problem. we tore it down to see its parts. And we compiled it again and repaired it. And later we produced some research reports. That's the story of how we repaired the launching vehicle. That's one of the 3 problems we solved at that time. So Mr. Wang Zhenhua made a very critical contribution to the missile research. You know, you had some problems with accuracy in the first place, right? Yes, for the first few trials. Yes, we need to be cautious with the accuracy in terms of how far it can reach. Why did we use the liquid engine at that time? The liquid is alcohol. Because it's more protective than a solid one. If we use the solid one, when we compile it, it's just ready for use. But that's not the case for the liquid. The liquid one is more accurate for the tactical missiles. But the liquid engine has a big problem with the accuracy. We need to be very professional with the research of the liquid engine. And it's quite sensitive. We need to be accurate when we launch the missile, whether it will fit in the set trajectory and target. That technology was very developed at that time. But that technology was provided by by former Soviet Union. However, it is not the latest technology at that time. In 1990, we had a first trial of launching the missile, which proved very successful. That means our plan was right. And later we had two launching. One of them was not smooth enough. That missile proved more powerful than we expected. I know you've been having a tough time, but you also enjoy it, right? Yes, we worked very hard, and we were under great pressure. You know, Mr. Wang is the chief designer, and another expert was dispatched away for another post in 1990. So we lost some talents. And we did not sleep well at the time because we worried about our task. In 1992, we had another 2 launches. For the module, we had we need to have 3 brains. If you want to be accurate, you need to fit the middle ring and the smaller ring. So by the end of 1992, we had another launching. This time we were under bigger pressure. We had tough days. According to the tasks, we need to accomplish the goal by 1995 on finalizing the design. But we did not settle the problem of accuracy yet. So we were under great pressure. And we were warned by a driver that you'd better be cautious about your task, about accuracy. We have some consultants on the tactical missiles. The consultant told me that we already fixed some problems, but a key problem is there is a big difference. Big error in our design. So I discussed with Mr. Wang to start technology breakthrough again. We spent over half year on that. The error is the major threat to the accuracy, and we spent a lot of time on tackling the issue, and finally we got it. And we improved the accuracy a lot. So we had another launch. It hit 17 meters horizontally, and that means we hit the target right in the middle. So we refined our plan and reshuffled the mix and improved the missile design, and that helped us improve the accuracy. You know, you had been making lots of contribution to the missile research, but few people know your work. Yes, not only us do the work, but also the team members. We had a strong team. We had research on long-range missiles. We had research on all kinds of missiles. And I learned that Mr. Wang has a very special personality, and some people had some opinion about him because he looked very serious in working. So, did you have any entertainment activities after work? Well, we seek the joy in our hard work. We organized a football team and lots of other sports team. We also organized our people to watch films. You know, many of us belong to the coastal guards, and our workplace is a military compound. In the Wuhan military base, we had a cinema for us to watch films because we think that's important for us to refresh up after work. And the people all waited in the evening for the films to come from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. I think it's very tough period for you, right? Although you had chances to watch film. Do you also have a change in your state of mind when you do research on the missile? Well, I don't think so, because when before we came here, we were fully prepared for what to come. At that time, we were called the three-line production team, and that's required by our chairman Mao Zedong. We all had very bad working conditions. Once we had some problem, we will be organized to learn the lessons from Chairman Mao's comments. We were told to run against the time. At that time, we all followed Chairman Mao very sincerely. After the founding of the new China, the Chinese people were in great spirit to work and live. Most people enjoy such a steady state of life. But as time goes on, we followed not only the thoughts of Chairman Mao, but also other theories, because time changes. We had a lot of experts, including Wang Zhengcai, which moved from hospitals to here. When they move, they also need to tackle the problem of getting along with their families. A number of people stood out at that time. Some people were asked to go to Sichuan, but they refused because they want to spend time with their family. And some people decided to stay here forever. for their work. You know, we have senior leaders and we have also young people who have different thoughts. If they refuse the task from the top, then we will try to be flexible. We will not try to conflict with them. Just now, Mr. Cao mentioned that on this journey to find back the three-line memory, since 1964, the three-line production was not only about 15 years after that. It also includes the time after 1979. Yes, the three-line production includes two periods. One is the time before the deterioration of relations between China and the former Soviet Union. We had a number of steel plants which went quite well, but later, when the relations between China and the former Soviet Union deteriorates, we changed the three lines to Jiangxi and other regions. You know, China and the former Soviet Union had a conflict on Zhenbao Island. And after that, the Coastal Guard applied for the production of this base. So the three-line production made a lot of contribution to China's military defense, right? In what ways? You know, China has a steel company called the Pangang Steel Company. They were built in the first place for military purpose. In the early period, many of our steels were imported from other countries, firstly from the US and transferred from Hong Kong to the mainland. In the worst case of the mainland Strait relations, we tried to maintain the peace and successfully helped Hong Kong return to the motherland. Regarding Taiwan, if you had a launching site in Taiwan, it would be very dangerous and it will be very easily spotted. You know, the former leader of Taiwan, Mr. Li Donghui, he had this theory of becoming independent, but he was criticized by the Chinese people. We know that the three-line production made contribution not only to the national military defense, but also to the transportation, to the production and industry. Yes, in the Changjiang River plain, we did not have bridges in the plain. But now we have bridges, we had vehicles. When we started the construction, our workers worked in shanty houses. And the local people never saw vehicles before. A grandma even asked me, how much grass did we feed a car every day? That's a silly question, right? Just Ms. Tao said we had 1,000 newly built military factories. So we think that three-line production greatly promoted the national industry, transportation, and else. At that time, China was not so developed compared with the United States and the former Soviet Union. That was the biggest threat to China's national stability. The central leadership called on the three-line production. We came here to make sacrifices, make a contribution to our country. But some people complained that it was a burden to us. And I was quite confused how it became a burden. Some people thought it was remote. Mr. Li Yeho was the vice chief command at that time. He wore the military uniform. And sometimes he would joke whether I could afford a batch of cigarette. And at that time, people's thinking were like that it would be very odd to wear dresses. And we had some requirements on the people, like you cannot go to the streets with in the grass shoes, in pants. People's thinking were forbidden. That's what we call the burden from the three-line production basis. So in order to appease the people, we held a meeting in Chengdu, Jinxiu Hotel. A lot of people try to give speeches, especially the party secretary of the Pangang Steel Company. He had a wonderful speech. I also wrote a speech for myself and also for my bosses. My speech was about the strategy for the three-line production basis. I said the Soviet Union had a plan to develop Siberia, and the US had a plan to develop its western region. Why couldn't China develop its remote areas, the inland cities? We came here because of the country's requirements, but now we became the so-called burdens to the country. So I think we should make some adjustments. There is a Hongling River around here. It's highly possible to have a flood here. So this area, the workplace, is not so friendly to us. Well, we had a strategy at that time to live by the mountain area and to protect ourselves. You know, this office building is built around in the mountain compound. Now next we will go to see the factories. We will have around 20 minutes to reach there. Just now Mr. Cao shared with us some history and stories about the three-line production memories. And now I'd like to tell you a secret. Why Mr. Cao knows the history so well. I once visited his home in Wuhan. I was quite surprised because he had some very good collections of stones which he made by himself. He also had a very good habit of keeping a diary. Even yesterday he kept a diary. Now I just to show you some example. This is the diary of Mr. Cao. May 15. Wow, it's from 1990. May 15. He kept a diary for every day until you can see May 21st. He also had some mark on important dates. For example, shooting the targets. This one is from 1976 until 1978. He kept a very detailed diary, including the celebration of the National Day and other festivals. Well, this is from 1970s when the factory was newly built. It's 1970 when we're about to go to Wanshan for the construction of the first project. Yes, we are heading for Wanshan. Could you share with us some stories about that period? Yes, in Wanshan area, we had a launching pad factory. We had a big carrier vehicle weighing over 10 tons. I joined this factory in June 1970. And the first day I came here, I was dispatched to the Wanshan area. The factory became production on the July the 1st. Let's take a look at the diary. It's mainly about how the first day construction started, how the people started the production clause by clause, hand by hand. Yes, after we finished the work, in the evening I wrote a diary about it. We had a lot of people working there. Many people were quite radical because they think not only the experts can do the work, others can also do it. The work were basically about the dealing with the sand, the construction, and so on. So I wrote some of my feelings about the daytime work. It's about July the 13th of 1970. What is special about us is that we followed closely the thoughts of Chairman Mao. We had a very long day in the working base. We think we need to improve the efficiency and find a better way of work. We found out some problems in our work and we need to find the solutions. Maybe you cannot see it clearly, but this diary is about the 3-line production. In the morning, you did not know what you will do in the afternoon. You had no idea what's coming. Although we started construction, but we were not sufficient at it. Well, Mr. Cao brings us back to the 3-line prediction period in 1970s. I think it's very great memory. It takes 6 hours from here to reach Yuan'an City. Well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our nation, to thank CGTN, because what we have done cannot be forgotten. We should respect history and draw lessons from it. So thanks to you all for making this interview. Well, let's today take a look at the factory side. We will also share with you some handicrafts made by Mr. Cao. I think it's very precious. Where did you find this stone? Well, it's found in a mountain, in our experiment mountain. It's in the Gobi area or the desert. We brought water with us to the area. We try to have some fun. And we find this stone. It's very natural. It's eroded by the wind. Did you polish it? No, never. It was purely natural. It is the same as what I found it. If it's too soft, it will die away. I can tell from this stone that you are facing a very special natural environment. There is a story behind it. The chief designers told me to take a walk around, so I followed them, and we drove to a vast area. a dessert. And I came across this stone. It's very special. It has a special shape. How about the base? Is it natural? No, I made it myself. Isn't it like a handicraft kind of a decoration? Where do you get this? In the Gobi area, it's home to many dark stones, but this one is white, so it's rare. It's like a dog. And people became jealous of me because I found it. How long would you normally stay in the Gobi area? 6 months at most. It's quite a long time. But when the holiday came, we had a lot of days for having fun. We had experiment teams, we had military teams there. Even when we finalize the design plan, that's not the final. The engine control system, the separation system need to be tested one by one. After we finished with the testing, we go to compilation. Normally, it would take a long time to do that because through trials and errors, you need to make some adjustments. One launching would usually take a few months. Do you have a fixed time for the launching? We had some technicians to come to help. The time plan need to be approved by the National Defense Ministry. And we also report a launching plan to the ministry. The reporting takes a long time. The measuring system at that time is not as good as today for the satellite or for the weather. It's very difficult to find a cloud controlling system if the weather is bad. You cannot change the plan whatever you want because it's already fixed and the facility was already moved there. And the things were very slow. We had a lot of tests for the lights, and we need to coordinate different testings. We didn't have any cell phones. It usually takes more than one night to find a cloud controlling. And if it rains, then we need to wait for another day to do the test. So the changes of the weather is not controllable. We also have a test for the vehicle for 350 kilometers. I remember once when we did the test, it rained. We did not have any trees there. We did not have any electric lines. The general command at that time, fortunately, we had a beeper. And thanks to the beeper or the interphones, we reported the case. And the chief designer asked us to drive faster. You know, the fastest speed is 65 kilometers per hour. And finally, we tried every possible way to reach the destination. So, you know, we had very poor facilities and poor conditions. So how about the Gobi environment? Yes, I mean the Gobi is the Jiuquan area. It's a launching site. When we did not work, we will enjoy holidays and had some fun. It takes around 2 to 3 hours to drive to Jiuquan, around 100 kilometers away. But the road was very bumpy at the time, so it takes longer. Very snaky roads. All kinds of snaky roads, no highways. I read from your diary that you had some very interesting daily life in Jiuquan. You said you went to the market to buy vegetables. Anything special? Well, the area does not have very good water. The water is very salty. We only had a few wells, so the drinking water is very difficult to find. And we didn't plant vegetables there because the condition did not allow. You know, we had camels running everywhere in the Gobi area. So it's very difficult to find vegetables. We cannot even get cabbages. How many people will go together with you for a target practice? 300 people. 300? Yes. Yes, for the test of the separation engine, we will also send a lot of people to go with us. You know, Jiuquan has a large area of land and produces a lot of vegetables. So we usually go to Jiuquan to buy vegetables. Are there any other people joining you for the launching experiment? Yes, of course. I remember once when we tried to launch a satellite, we had a lot of people going together, around 20 people squeezing in a small house. Not enough space for us to sleep in. So we had some problem with the housing. I remember once I shared a room with Mr. Wang. You know, sometimes even 5 or 6 people shared a house. Once we decided to make a documentary, and the director team came to us that we had an empty house, and he asked me whether I could share the house with them. But I said that's not empty actually. So when did you think you can perform better and better in the missile launching? According to the suggestions of our leaders, we improved our plan. In 1990s, we fixed some key problems on technology. In 1993, we had 5 launching. 94, we had 4 launching. In 95, we had another few launchings, and all of them proved very successful. The error was only 20 to 30 meters. You know, your missiles were shown in the military reviews. After 1993, the 2nd Artillery heard that we performed really well, and we were very good with the accuracy. But 300 kilometers range is very short. According to our plan, 300 kilometers belongs to a middle range. But we started discussion again because it involves our future strategy. Our leaders did not approve our report. But the National Defense Ministry heard about this story, and they came to support us. So the leaders came from the 2nd Artillery, gave us great support. So I think to make a difference, that involves a lot of conditions. The technology, the people, and the time. The Vice Commander-in-Chief brought a lot of generals and lieutenants to visit us. And one general showed great interest in us. And we had very pleasant discussions. So my leaders heard about this and decided to let us compete with the DF6. And the National Science and Technology Commission convened a panel of experts to test our plan. And they said the DF6 proved more realistic. But actually, our work was widely known among other departments, including the management, the production. So we were quite embarrassed. We did not know what to do. I'm sorry, the signal is not very good. This is Wanshan Machinery Factory, the first such factory in China. We have a missile compilation factory, a engine factory, a wireless radio factory, and a radar factory. This factory attracts the biggest investment. We produced a lot of civil products, including the flat cars. You know, we talk a lot about military and civil use. So you started the civil purpose production since an early time, right? Yes, there is a Wanshan vehicle produced from this factory. It's a minibus. It was very popular at that time. We produce not only military products but also civil purpose products. And we will have a special coverage on the civil use products later. So not only space industry products for our nation, but also the products needed by our people. That's a back door of the factory. When did you return last time? Last time when I returned here, I was also on an interview with CCTV. Do you think a lot of changes have taken place here since you left? You know, this area used to be very prosperous. A lot of products were exported. You know, the Wanshan minibus was not easy to buy at that time. You need to have very special relations to get one. You can see this factory. That's where the first project started. It produces tools and also offers the repair service. And it started operation on the July 1st of 1970. This building has the longest history. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today we have interviewed Mr. Cao for China's first generation of tactical ballistic missiles. And it is the birthplace of Dongfeng missiles that have been shown to the world at the country's military reviews. Well, thank you for watching. Please follow us on CGTN on our Weibo account and YouTube and Facebook. Thank you for watching.